Ohayou gozaimasu. Akama Yoko desu. My name is Yoko Akama. I'm a Japanese woman and design researcher now living on the lands of the Bunurong and Woiwurrung peoples of the Eastern Kulin Nation, now called Australia. As customary to this place, I start by acknowledging the long, continuous line of elders, ancestors, and more than human traditional custodians of this land, and pay respects to their wisdoms and what they generously and powerfully teach us about the possibilities of many shared futures. I also extend this respect to the traditional custodians where you are all gathered, together and differently. The ongoing violence of colonialism can be witnessed in oppressive structures of gender inequality all around the world. So I'd like to honour the grandmothers, mothers, sisters, aunties, nieces, and daughters everywhere, and their families, friends, communities, and allies that are and have been resilient and inspiring in fighting for social justice. I thank you all. I was also honoured to be invited to this gender design program to help the teams in Asia. From their work and looking through various contributions from other projects in further regions around the world, there are several points I like to summarise as noteworthy. Firstly, as a methodological contribution, I wish to recognise the significance of understanding the entrenched and penetrating systemic issues of gender inequality and how your research powerfully attests sensitivities, openness, and relationships that are so central in doing this work. This is not the same as any generic qualitative user research. The trust, safety, compassion, and courage you established for dialogue and for intersectional disadvantages and vulnerabilities to be expressed and worked with is so important. To me, this establishes a benchmark about the ethical premise of what gender design research is and should be. Secondly, your projects demonstrated that gendered exclusion and oppression is, indeed, a wicked problem that are nested within distributed, dynamic, and contingent factors that condition the experiences of people, groups, and organizations. You evidence that individuals or technological designs alone cannot solve such massive problems because we are all entangled in historical, sociocultural constructions of gender inequalities. So while it might seem frustrating to be, scratching the surface and alleviating just the symptoms in a short-term project, our collective learning here enables us to view these explorations more holistically. From my point of view, it's the combination of all of your work as orchestrated, connected, layered, and distributed, variously intervening at different points at the individual level, family level, community level, organizational level, sector level, policy level, disciplinary level, through dialogue, education, research. This is what matters and is most compelling. I see these connected and distributed interventions as a meta design, a strategic, systemic, transdisciplinary designing that shows great promise in what gender design and research is and needs to be. I am so sorry that I can't be with you all and meet you in person. Working with and through this distance has been a challenge in my participation in this program, but I hope my small contribution goes some way towards recognizing the achievements. Congratulations to the project teams, sector experts, advisors, affiliated researchers, and finally, the Carlton team. Well done, and おめでとうございます。どうもありがとうございました。
In this this project, we aim to understand the gender-based problems experienced by women in public transport with the aim of proposing a new design methodology that is capable of transforming these experiences in Ankara, where is the capital city of Turkey. My name is Pinar Kaygan and I'm the principal investigator of the project. We are quite an interdisciplinary team consisting of members from not only design but also from gender and women studies, sociology and engineering. The co-PI of the project is Asuman Özgür Kaysan. She is based at METÜ. Safety of women in public transport became a very big issue in the agenda of feminists in Turkey. So I thought that this project would be a good opportunity to focus on how we can understand women's experiences in public transport and to question if, as designers, we can contribute to the solution of the problems. We had two stages in the project. So we first conducted the interviews with these three groups of women to understand their experiences. And in the last part of our interview, we asked more subtle questions, such as, do you think that it's different to be a woman in a bus compared to be a man? So if you ask directly, they don't want to talk about it. But if you ask about their preferences in the bus regarding where they want to stand or sit, when you ask that kind of questions, actually they start telling you some stories. It was the first stage. And for the second stage, we analyzed the interviews with women using thematic analysis. And then we presented it to the designers and the experts. And then we asked the experts to interpret our findings in light of their disciplinary perspective. And then we had a discussion all together with the designers. How can we approach such a problem? Or do designers, for example, find it realistic? So it was more like a brainstorming at the beginning. And then we gave them 2 weeks for the design process. And also during the process, they kept writing on their diaries if anything changed, or, for example, what kind of methods they used. They submitted their concept ideas and also their reflections, the diaries, and the descriptions of the ideas, how they think that it will solve the problem. And then we had a final meeting with them. So I think the next step should be, okay, in the project we focused on a specific context, a specific country or a city. But how can we make sense of our findings when we come together and compare the data from different contexts? I would like to ask this. So in 2 ways, in 2 directions, I would like to extend it in terms of industry and products and different contexts.
My name is Didacienne Mukanyiligira. I hold a PhD degree in telecommunication engineering. I'm also the project investigator of the project titled Gender Differentials and Mobility Constraints in Urban Area, a case study of Kigali City. This project was implemented by the University of Rwanda and the Rwandan Association for Women in Science and Engineering, RAWIS. The team is composed of researchers in the field of transport engineering, applied mathematics, physics, and gender.
We provide the role model for young women wishing to enter the field of science and engineering, we advocate for the problem that faced by women in STEM.
The purpose of the project was to improve mobility of women and vulnerable people in Kigali public transport system, focusing on harassment, lack of women in design and decision making in public transport. The Gender Public Transport Project showed that there are tenuous and clear gender differences in transport patterns. We looked at the existing programs like in the bus transport system, where you see that in the evening hours, peak hours, you see that people are competing to go into the bus. And those people, sometimes they don't care of people pregnant and so on. We looked at the transport policy in Rwanda, and you find that there is nothing related to gender in it. Initially, I didn't understand what is gender design, but I came to understand it's a research you do considering gender aspect to produce a product that is both good for all gender, men and women. Most of the time when they talk about public transport in Kigali, they talk about buses. But for us, we went beyond that. So what we did, we went in the bus stations. So we go to the queue, we start addressing people. And sometimes the bus comes while you are interviewing someone and he has to go into the bus. What do? You go with her or with him into the bus. We also go to the motorbike and we try to walk with the person wherever he's going after. But these people, it's hard for us to reach them, but we are trying our best. And again, we thought like going to the university where there are many people can also help us. We've tried to with this questionnaire we have, there are online questionnaires. We make sure we use QR code. So we ask him or her to scan the link. He scans it and he replies. But we are trying our best to really correct data, but we are facing some challenges, of course. I remember we also updated this questionnaire when the COVID-19 lockdown was there, because the initial design of the questionnaire was no longer the same because the conditions has changed. So we are no longer traveling during the night because of curfew due to COVID-19. So, and there are restrictions of like 25% of people in the bus. Later on came 30, later on came 50. Now we are at 75% of people in the bus. So that's where we came up by updating the questionnaire based on the situation. The questionnaire itself can help because it is where we get what is needed to be done from different people. And then we do this research based on the feedback from the questionnaire to try to improve well-being of people, because we are doing everything for citizens and we need to get their needs, or we need to hear or understand their needs, so that whatever we produce, we don't think about it ourselves as researchers, we do what the community needs.
The project is about designing mobile services for aging women in Malaysia. Okay, what we do is we find that Malaysia is, will become an aging nation in 2035. It's not very far away. And we predict that, especially even right now, the COVID-19 pandemic scenario, everybody is, moving or transforming into digital, the digitizations. So, and it become a more challenges for, especially for the elderly. They, how can they actually still access to internet or even, the digital tools and all those things for them to get information or even get access, to what's happening around them and also around the world. Research method that we use is, first is we use on secondary data. We crawl, we refer to BOSM, which in the Department of Statistical Malaysia, we look at the correlations, associations of how the digital tools and use, and also the and family income, right, associated with the aging population. And we've done that data analysis, especially my project team members. We have we have 5 project members, including me myself. So I would say I have a very great team members, to be honest. They are very great. I think they are very, very productive, and also I would say very cooperative. I would say my team members are very, very experts. Expert in their own field. So now we are moving into the second phase from this, and how can we actually help to inform? We are using a case study. Because of the COVID-19, elderly, we can't really meet each other face to face, right? There was been trying to first we wanted to go into focus group and then go into ethnography, but it was like, how can we do online ethnography? That was impossible, to do, in digital ethnography with elderly and in the family contacts and all those. So we are looking into the case study. So we will, interview, and then with the elderly and also the family members. The elderly, they cannot escape from not using smartphone, because we are using the tracking apps, we call My Sejahtera. So wherever you go, you have to scan a QR code for you to enter, enter the shops or anything, and even for vaccinations and all those things, you need to use the apps and all those. So it was interesting that how, we wanted to look into it, what are the issues how they were used, even, among the elderly, and also, of course, whether there was any emerging gender's perspective that helped to inform for the mobile service design, in Malaysian context.
In Pakistan, which is a very, very patriarchal, conservative context, the kind of access that women have to technologies is limited. Often mobile phones are shared. Even when you don't have low-income households, even when you have resources or finances are not a concern, you will still have women with monitored phones. So they're using public transport. And they're getting harassed on the way there, and they're getting harassed on the way back. And so when women go into factories, we wanted to understand the kind of violence they experience there, the shape and form it takes, right? So it's not just physical violence, and it's not just sexual violence or microaggressions or harassment. We wanted to understand sort of the full spectrum of the kind of aggressions that they face, who can't go on Google. They're not reading the newspaper. Their social circles are limited. They're not leaving the house. And yet they are finding jobs in factories. There are existing mechanisms for navigating that, but then also how can we design and what can we design that will help them form collectives? So if there are certain factory spaces, if there are certain, because women don't have these social circles, there's no Reddit, right? There's no Yelp that tells them that this particular factory is very male dominated and has a culture that is very, very abusive towards younger women entering the workforce. And so these are the kind of insights that we were looking to generate to sort of better understand what design might look like. And as we start to become more and more digitized, and because technology has such great potential for connecting women in contexts where their mobility in public spaces is very limited. My work as a technologist in Pakistan has looked at sort of the affordances or the lack of affordances and the gaps in how technologies are designed for populations that are part of the global south, so particularly vulnerable and marginalized communities. And it's my colleague and collaborator, Hadia Majid, she's an economist. And so she looks at women's labor participation. And so she has a better understanding of the economics and the labor markets and how women access labor markets, and a better understanding of their unpaid care work and how that sort of correlates with their actual paid labor. So we typically approach community organizations and we work with them, and we leverage the trust that they have with these communities to interview women. We worked with Ahuvat, which is a microfinance organization. It's one of the largest MFI organizations in South Asia. Directly asking them didn't really get us anywhere, but just asking them to talk to us about their daily routines, talking to us about some of their challenges in just, even before talking about what happens in a factory or in a workplace, talking about, well, tell us the process of getting out of the house. Because, some of the narratives that some of the stories that we were getting weren't, especially in terms of the environment within the workspace, they weren't detailed enough. So we didn't use text for each of these cards. We used images. Were the gold cards. That's what you want to get to. The yellow cards were your activity cards, and the red colored cards were your barrier cards. And we kind of asked them what they were feeling or what they thought about when they saw that image. So a video in there it was a very short video in a local context that showed sort of a younger woman working on a factory floor, and then her older boss coming to tell her how to sort of stitch the cloth, but getting very inappropriately close and inappropriately touching her. And she's trying to move away, and he's not sort of giving her the space to move away. And we asked the women what they thought about this. And at that point, we started to get, well, yeah, I've seen that. Yes, that's happened. And so we tried to visualize and sort of use images to help women understand what each card meant. And we went back into the field and we said, okay, I want you to pick a goal as an aspiration, one goal that speaks the most to you. And here are the barrier cards and here are the activity cards. And I want you to sort of pick your current starting position from where you are. And this is your aspiration, your goal card. And can you use a mixture of these cards to get from here to your goal? And can you tell us about what that journey is like? What kind of barriers, conflicts do you think, kind of activities might help you get around those barriers? And that was actually, I think, really revealing in terms of the kinds of, women got really involved in that, and they wanted to sort of, they caught on really quickly because it was very visual and it was very tangible. And so they started making these pathways with specific activities and specific aspirations. What kind of things would I be doing and how would I be overcoming my barriers?